Hello.
Hello there, Kenya. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Very well indeed. Lovely to hear your voice.
Nice hearing yours as well.
That's great. So, whereabouts are you in the world? Where do we find you today?
I'm in Chicago. I'm in
Oh,
Chicago, Illinois,
the
in the
Windy
United
City.
States. So, and
Ah,
it is very windy today. It's crazy. They have like 30-mile-per-hour winds right now. It's
wow.
crazy.
You can go windsurfing up the streets. That's great. Fabulous. That's great. That's lovely. So, tell us a little bit about the sort of start with you and music. How did you end up being Kenya, the artist, as opposed to Kenya, the person?
Yeah, I had done a lot of music growing up and, I was trained and took lots of classes and all that good stuff. But once I went to college, I studied physical therapy. And, you know, after I graduated, I worked as a physical therapist and then went into education and I just stopped doing music. So,
Mm.
um, it was in 2009 that I was really having a lot of like I was going through a lot of I had my midlife crisis very early because I was just feeling crazy and I knew it was because I wasn't doing what I was really passionate about, which was music.
Yeah.
And so it was, I would say 2009 is when I started writing and just trying to get myself familiar because I literally hadn't touched, I play the piano and I hadn't touched my piano in like years. I mean,
Wow.
we're not talking like weeks, it was like years. And I just started, I didn't know how to start. I mean, I'm not from Chicago. I'm based here in Chicago now, but I'm originally from Denver. So it was a
Colorado.
situation.
Mm.
Yep, in
Yep.
Colorado. That's where
Yep.
I was raised. But I live here now, so I didn't know musicians here. I was just little old me, and so I don't know. I started taking some classes just to get my music theory back in my brain because I can be pretty analytical. I'm very creative, but I'm also very
Hmm.
analytical. So I wanted to maybe go take some classes. And once I did that, I started meeting other musicians. And I would say, around 2010 is when I finished my first EP.
Yeah.
And it was really kind of unplanned. I mean, I worked with some amazing musicians, Maurice Joshua, who is a producer based here in Chicago, but is known around the world.
Of
And
course. Yep.
yeah, and he helped me understand what it would be like to be an independent artist and how you get that started. So I would say 2010, it was once we got that, he produced my EP called Starting Over. And that's when it started hitting. And
Mm.
it wasn't until I quit working as a physical therapist and stopped teaching about 2 years ago. And that's when it finally came home.
Wow.
And I
Well,
decided to accept it. Yeah.
well, that's. I'm glad you did decide to accept it because what wonderful music we've been hearing, and very very appreciative of the music that we've received and been airing for you here in the UK. It's
Yeah, it's been amazing. I mean, it's so amazing. I wish I was there so I could like hear and see and feel. But from what I'm seeing online and all the messages and it's been outstanding. It really has.
Well, we're loving the music that we've received. I mean, My Own Skin, an absolute fabulous tune, and also the Wednesday Girl.
Yeah.
We've got two mixes of that, and both equally as wonderful.
Oh,
You've been doing so many things. I mean, working with Jiva's Carrie Cabral and also Bugs in the Attic. And
yeah,
tell us a little bit
yeah.
more about all of that kind of stuff. That's great.
Yeah, it's so I have been a massive fan of Kari's for years. I mean, this is before he ever knew I existed. I was just a fan, and I've always bought, the Jiva stuff, the stuff with Julie Dexter, all of that. I've always, always supported his music,
Mm,
but
yeah.
I never, I didn't know anything past his songs. I didn't know, where he lived, where he was based, or any of that kind of stuff. And then Bugs in the Attic, I was introduced to them years ago by a really good friend of mine. And I remember being like, bugs in the air, what in the world? And then when I would hear
some of the remixes and things, yeah.
right, I'm like, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And so it really was the universe really showed up. I went to a concert to see India Ari perform a couple of years ago.
Wow.
And Kari is her bass player when she does tours and stuff. And so he was playing with her. And when she announced, I didn't even know what Kari looked like, because a lot of the albums, you don't see him. You just see like the artworks. I had no idea what he even really looked like, although he had released Clementine's Son, which is a solo effort. And I did have that. But still, it's a profile picture of him. But at any rate, India reintroduced him. And after her set, my husband was like, you should meet him. You talk about him all the time. You should try to meet him. And I stood at the stage, and it was so funny. Just pitiful. I'm like, excuse me. I just want to say hello and how much I love your music. And honestly, he's probably one of the most humble spirits. Just an incredibly gracious guy. And so we started talking, and we realized we had a lot of musical, interests, a lot of similar interests and connections. And that's how we started working with each other. And then he told me he's like, oh, my partner is Darren Benjamin. And so when he said Darren, I just thinking a guy named Darren. I didn't really think anything of it. And then
like you. Yeah.
we started talking, and I'm like, wait a minute, what? And this was right before we were going to start studio recording. So I was all with my little songs and ready. And I'm just thinking he has some assistant named Darren. I mean, I didn't know any. And then Daz reached out to me, and I'm like, oh my God, you're him, and Kari was like, well, yeah, I told you. And I was like, you know what? You did tell me you've done work with, Daz IQ from Bugs in the Attic, but I just wasn't connecting the dots. And so they are fantastic. Just a fantastic duo.
Wow. Yeah. Not just any old Darren. Yeah. I like it.
Yeah, no, they're extraordinary. They are exceptional. They really are.
Oh, Kenya, that's a fabulous story. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's really great. I love talking to the artist. You just get so much more of the feel around everything. It's wonderful. Yeah.
And the funny thing about My Own Skin, I mean, that was the very first composition I think that Kari and Daz sent me music-wise, and it just immediately, the music, the bass line, I was like, oh, I'm going to be able to do anything. So this is amazing, Kari. And so it was a really easy song for us to work on, because it came pretty natural.
Wonderful. No, that's really good. And of course, nowadays, sending tunes between artists and each one doing their own individual thing and not always necessarily coming together is the norm now. Technology allows for that, and it just means that things can happen perhaps a little quicker and a little more cost effectively than they did in previous times. So it's a win-win, really, isn't it, when you think about it?
Absolutely, you're exactly right. Exactly right.
There are plenty of things about the technology that aren't win-win situations, but we won't go into that today.
Yeah, no, that was a win-win. I mean, we eventually got in the studio together to, when we did the final recordings. But yeah, everything was actually, Kari was on tour. So it was crazy because he was touring with India, and it was like I don't know how many months. I mean, it was several months that he was, touring around the world. And so, but he squeezed it in. He would write a little bit and send it to me. And I'm like, oh my God, this is like crazy. This is wonderful. So it was great.
Fabulous. That's really, really good. And at the moment, it's the Wednesday Girl tune that we're getting a lot of the sort of press release about and pushing and so on. So we're really, really into that, and that's fantastic. So
that was the other one, and it's funny because that was the hardest track to write, because they sent me that one, and I was like, oh boy, okay, I'm not sure how I'm gonna. And I actually, Kari had written a variety of music compositions and had sent me, and he was like, just pick whatever you feel comfortable with. And I felt very uncomfortable actually with the music on Wednesday Girl, because as a musician, it really doesn't follow normal chord progressions. And, it goes like against every, theory of how it's a very jazz, more in the jazz lane in terms of how you would have to write to it. And I was getting a little intimidated by it, but my husband was like, well, that means you're supposed to write to it because, he's like, if it's scaring you, that means it's, that's the one. And I'm like, oh, Lord. And so, but yeah, it turned out, and it's funny because it wasn't one that I thought I was like, oh, I don't know how people are going to really receive this. It's a little different. It's, I don't know. And, boom. So I'm just really excited. I mean, I had a feeling that it would do well abroad because it really highlighted, I think, more of what Kari and Daz do. But no one knows me. No, I'm like, they don't know me though. So they're going to be like, who is this? So it actually worked out really well.
Well,
so.
it sits beautifully on that kind of, on the balance between soul and R&B, and your two different mixes there. I don't know why you perhaps chose those two particular different mixes, but they both do their own thing. They both take it to a different place, if you know what I mean. So
they do, yeah. No, the first one is the Nights Over. The remix obviously came a little bit later, but the original one, they did a nice, like you said, I think that's a good example or a good explanation, a mix between the jazz and then the R&B, the neo soul. But when I went back to Daz and I said, okay, we need to do a remix. And I have no idea how to help you. So you have to. I said, so you're just going to have to figure it out. And I'm going to give you complete artist license because I have no idea. I said, I just know that I don't want, to change what I'm doing very much. So, and they got together and did a live, that's live instrumentation there. And so they sat together, him and Kari and some other players, Julius Speed, and Julius Speed is from Ananda Project, and he's another really just amazing keyboardist who played on it. So they did a great job.
Yeah, they most certainly did, and very very enjoyable, both mixes, and very usable, but in different scenarios.
Right.
And for a DJ out live, you got the Vox, which is a little bit more up there, and the radio edit is just great for the shows on Sound Fusion where I DJ. It's great. So
thank you.
Can you ask you a couple of questions, sort of going back to when you were a child? Is that okay?
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
Okay. I was just wondering, I mean, did you come from a very musical family? You sort of touched on it earlier, but we didn't sort of elaborate.
Yeah. Well, my father is a drummer, percussionist, and he never went professional, but he played drums in local clubs and, did a lot of local things when he was younger. And, played as a kid and all the way through high school and, all of that. And so he was the key. My mom is not in music at all. I mean, she likes to dance, but she wasn't involved in music. But my dad was heavily a huge fan of music. Like he played and he would play at local places, but, and he had his drum kit at home and, our house was always really loud. But he was not, he wasn't doing really studio sessions or things like that, but he always, every Tuesday, which is when music is released here in the United States, although that's about to change, but he would take me and my sister to the record store.
Wonderful.
And he would just go and, either listen or, buy a couple things, and he would let my sister and we're talking, I probably was like, I remember back as far as being like 4 or 5 years old, going to the record store. And, I was more fascinated by the cover art. So I would just go through the albums, because these are when records, the 12-inch. So you're seeing, the big old pictures. And so I was more into that probably initially, but that was his normal, was just to always, music was always playing. We were always in record stores. Once I got of age to start learning, to play instruments, it wasn't like asking. It was pretty, okay, it's time to start band. So what instrument are you going to play? I mean, it wasn't a question. And And so, and I was okay with that because I figured, that's what you do. We go and we learn an instrument now. So, yeah, it was heavy in my household. But again, it was more heavy, I think, to appreciate music and to listen to different types of music. Because my dad, while he enjoyed playing more jazz, he listened to everything from jazz to soul to pop to even rap. Like he would tell me about hip hop, but as I got older. So,
wow,
yeah.
That's great. So a dad that loved music and a mum that loved dance. That's a good place to start, isn't it? That's fabulous.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really good. So who were you listening to then? Who were your influences as you were growing up in music?
Yeah, I would say Stevie Wonder is probably who was the first person that I started actually reading like liner notes to. Like I think about when I was little, like who would be kind of buzzing in our house, and we had all of Stevie Wonder stuff. So I would just read his liner notes. Him, Donny Hathaway, I listened to a lot. Minnie Riperton. That's where, as a child. As I got older, I got a little bit more into Layla Hathaway. I'm a huge fan of what she does.
Me too.
Yeah. How can you not be? I don't know. When people, I've met one person who told me they didn't care for Layla, and I was like, what? Like, what? Where? How? But
I have a picture of me and Layla on the wall here in the studio. Yes.
Oh, lovely. Yes, I got the opportunity to open for her, and
wow.
I've met her. Yeah, I've met her on a few occasions. She's yeah, that's all crazy to me. But yeah, she's a big and I don't even know if it's so much because you dare not try to sound like Layla, because I mean that's just too much. But I just love the way that she interprets, music. Her not only just in tone, but just even her presentation, how she interprets it. So she's definitely someone I listen to. But I also, brand new heavies, Incognito. I would say, like, even with My Own Skin, Bluey,
yes.
what he does with Incognito. Yeah, I mean, a lot of that is in my head, the way that Incognito does music. And same with Brand New Heavies. I think Brand New Heavies was probably the first group. Oh, maybe Loose Ends. Loose Ends and Brand New Heavies were maybe the first groups that were coming from London that I started really like, okay, who are these people?
Yeah.
And, really paying attention to their music.
They're all big UK acts here, and and people that we know very well. It's lovely to hear you mention them. Actually, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I'm a huge Brand New Heavies, and it's funny. The drummer for Brand New Heavies just started following me on Twitter, and I about fell out. I was like, oh my God, this is crazy, only because I just really love what they do. So, and Jazzanova is another group. I think when I think of like bands and music interpretations, I like a lot of what they do. And then one other person, Gretchen Parlato, is a jazz vocalist and has done a lot of stuff with Robert Glasper, and I would say, Robert's another one that is phenomenal to me. So that's kind of where my jazz, Diane Reeves, that's where my jazz brain kind of sits. But then on the more soulful side, would be Stevie Wonder, Layla, Minnie Riperton, those people.
Oh, names, Kenya. They're just great ones. You're never going to go wrong with Stevie, eighth wonder of the world, are you? Never.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Fabulous.
So that's my Jesus of music. I call him Jesus. I
think many people do. Indeed, that's true. And I was talking of sort of drummers for Brand New Heavies and Incognito. I was actually with Nick Van Gelder on Saturday night at a gig.
See, look at you dropping names. Yeah.
I was on the decks, literally about a foot and a half behind Nick Van Gelder,
wow.
And because we were playing in between the band being on and the two performers, and so I know it's lovely to sort of know these people and
that's
get involved.
That's amazing. I will say another person musically who mesmerizes me is Sade, and I bring her up. I mean, of course, she mesmerizes everybody, but I think her simplicity is just, it's beyond. And I got an opportunity to not meet her. God, I don't think anybody will ever meet her, but the her bass player, and I'm like, oh my God, this is they're another. She's another. I think when I think in my head of just again of presence and of simplicity, and not to forget simplicity and how important, that less can be so much more. Yeah, so she's a influence, I would say, on that.
Beautifully put, Kenya. Absolutely beautifully put. And, we're looking forward to the full release of your CD, which you're looking at sort of spring, maybe early summer. Is that
well, actually, no, it's in where you are, it is released. It is officially out there. So I think that like, I know on Amazon, and I can't get access to iTunes UK version, so I can't tell if it's up there, but it's floating around. Right. We've got people who have bought it, and the official release date was supposed to be this past Sunday, the 15th. So
right, we may have it sitting in a promo library that I haven't been told about at the moment. I just have the promotional tunes that we were sent by your agent.
Oh, I got to get on Steve, because you got to hear the album.
Yeah, so I'm sure Steve's probably made it available to my producer. I'm sure that he would have done that. So especially with us interviewing you and so on.
Right.
Obviously,
I think he said he was going to start really. I'm getting into more of the album like once, like this week or so. So yeah.
So to say it like you Americans do, you're ahead of schedule.
Only over there, because we're behind schedule over here. My goodness. Oh, jeez. It's definitely Europe, and it's available out your way, but the United States is where the big question is when will it be released here? And I cannot give an answer, but we're aiming for by the fall of 2015. We're hoping before that, but
wow, yes. And we'd obviously love to see you in the UK at some point to come and watch you on stage. That would be wonderful.
Absolutely. We're working on it. Right? We might have some really fun announcements soon, so we are working.
All right, we're right on the edge of our seat here, Kenya. So.
Me too.
Oh, we're not alone then. That's good. Fabulous.
Lovely.
That would be really good. So, sort of moving forward, what have you got in the pipeline? Sort of going forward into the rest of 2015, perhaps early 2016. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, and you know what? You got quiet all of a sudden. I didn't hear. Wait, can you repeat that again? I didn't hear what you last said.
No, that's okay. Moving forward, for the last part of 2015, perhaps early 2016. What sort of things do you have in mind? What you're aiming for there?
Well, this album has become my obsession. So I've really been putting so much focus in that. I think the bigger focus, obviously, like you just mentioned, is performing. And, for me, performing that's the oxygen. I mean, I love to do studio work, and, writing is always really cathartic and fun, but performing is huge. So I'm really hoping we're going to do some promotional stuff as we go into summer and fall, but hoping we can do, more tour action by the end. And I have been approached, to do some collaborations. So I'm hoping that, I might be able to be featured here and there on some other people's projects. And it's funny, Kendall Duffy's from Cloud9,
yes.
And he is also a producer on the album, and has done some amazing songs. And when you hear the full album, you'll be able to hear more of his work. But it was funny. Just last night, we were texting, and it's like, okay, so what are we gonna do for the next album? Which is sad. I don't want to even think about that right now because it's so much. But I would say, performing mainly, and then collaborating. And I really have this dream of doing a Christmas EP. I have some nice rearrangements on some pretty classic holiday things, some very cool, funky, fun stuff. So I'm hoping I can. That would be more of a 2016 project, but I'm hoping we can get there and do that.
Sounds like fun. It sounds like fun. A nice holiday album, which Wonderful.
Yeah, it'd be different though. It wouldn't be like any regular.
Looking forward to hearing it then. Absolutely. We can always do with different when it comes to the holidays. That's for sure. That's wonderful. Yeah, really, really good. So as a sort of a last question then, which is really quite an easy one, could you point your fans and our listeners at your music, where they can find you, where they can find out information about you, your social media, Twitter, Facebook, etc.?
Absolutely. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook at Kenya MJ Music. So Kenya MJ Music, M as in Michael, J as in Jackson. I tell people that so they can remember. And then my website is also kenyamjmusic.com. And you can join my mailing list where I do updates and browse and listen to music, all that good stuff.
Sounds absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much for sharing that. And as a final thing, if there's anything that you'd like to say to your fans here in the UK, in fact worldwide, because we broadcast to 52 countries, then please feel free to do so.
Yeah, I just want to give a massive thank you. The level of support and the messages and the social media posts have been really overwhelmingly wonderful. So I just want to thank everybody, and please continue to tune in and reach out. I do try to respond to people because, I'm an independent artist and you are so valued. So just thank you, everybody, and let's stay connected, and thank you for tuning in.
That's wonderful, Kenya. And I have to say, you are so valued too. Please continue to make your wonderful music. Because
thank you.
We're enjoying it here in the UK very, very much, and looking forward to seeing you on the stage somewhere here. And
it's coming. It's coming.
We're waiting. That would be absolutely lovely.
Yeah, no, it would be lovely. Not just for you, for me. I've never been to London, so absolutely, we're putting it out into the universe. So it's going to come.
Good. Well, we'll help you put that out to the universe as well, and hopefully we can manifest something between us.
Okay, thank you.
That would be wonderful. Well, Kenya, thank you so much for spending all this time with us. It's a real privilege to speak to you artists and to enjoy the conversations that we've had and to talk about all these things. And I'm hoping someone's going to get that phone behind me in a minute because that shouldn't even be plugged in. So.
I'm surprised mine didn't ring. I'm so, now that I'm listening, I'm like, oh God, I'm so surprised that stupid phone didn't ring. But my cell phone is on silent, so I don't have to hear all that. But no, this has been a pleasure. It's always an honor, to be a guest, and I love being able to tell the stories. So I appreciate you. I appreciate you a lot.
Oh, then we appreciate you too. So have an absolutely blessed and beautiful rest of your day, and don't leave it too long before we speak to you soon.
Absolutely. And I look forward to hearing the interview. So yeah, thank you.
That's no problem at all. It'll go on our Hall of Fame with all our other interviews there, and be available for you to listen to whenever you want to. And,
yay!
And we'll keep in touch with you over the feature, so you know exactly when it's going to be, and you can get involved over social media and get people to come along and listen as well, which would be fabulous.
Perfect. Well, have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you soon. Take care.
You too. Take care now. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Peace
Bye-bye.
now. Thank you. Bye-bye.